Today is January 3, 2026. This will be the last winter garden experience that I will have in my house. This garden was one of the prized possessions of my house and of my family and what they stood for, in the sense that my Thakur Dada was civil surgeon Howrah and his father before him, and I believe there was quite a rivalry between father and son. So since I'm a student of literature, I can quite relate to that, about these rivalries that exist in the nearest of relationships. Anyway, so after my Thakudada died at age 50, leaving his family almost paupers because saving had not been a feature of their lives. My Takuma was only 42. She redeemed a life insurance policy and she bought this land in New Alipur, Sareshat Kata Jomi, and she made this house. But it was imperative that there be a garden. So I am sure that some readers, some members of my friend's circle here would have read Frances Hodgson Burnett's The Secret Garden and of the redemptive powers of nature. And another famous essay on garden and gardening that I teach my children, my students, as part of their gender component in the MA is Alice Walker's famous In Search of Our Mother's Gardens, where she brings gender and nature together. I felt I should take these photos because the flowers may wither, but I will say a few words about what Walker has to say in that essay. So, In Search of Our Mother's Gardens is actually a rewriting in some ways of Woolf's In a Room of One's Own, except that Alice Walker rewrites it within the framework of Black women's experience. And in trying to create a historiography, she mentions Zora Neale Hurston's, I forget the name of Hurston's book right now. She mentions Zora, Their Eyes Were Watching God. Yes, that's the book. Zora Neale Hurston, in the time of the Harlem Renaissance, who created an idiom, an oral idiom of Black women's writing. So that's what Black women did. Black women writers in the 1970s, Morrison, Alice Walker in The Color Purple. That is, they defined their art against white scripted traditions, male white scripted traditions, women's white scripted traditions, and Black male scripted traditions, which were all logocentric, which all valued the written word. So they privileged the oral speech rhythms, and that was there in oral storytelling in Africa. They tried to go back to their African origins and try to revive Black women telling stories in the kitchen. That's Paul Marshall from The Poets in the Kitchen. So to revive the rhythms of black women speaking, an excellent and brilliant example of which is Alice Walker's Color Purple. Sister Instead of sister, Sister, it is even spelt Sistuh, the way black people pronounce it, sister. Henry Louis Gates Jr., in The Signifying Monkey, says that the black speech was always another layer under white speech, white standard English, and that it actually signified or brought another realm of meaning to white speech. So I think it's May Gwendolyn Henderson in her essay Dialogics and Dialectics and Black Women's Writing. She said, in white Columbia, I spoke one kind of English, but at home, in growing up in the Caribbean, I heard a different kind of English. So anyway, going back to Alice Walker, Alice Walker says that black women initially had no scope for expressing their creativity. They lacked crayons. I mean, in the novel Sula, Toni Morrison says, and one of the reasons she gives for Sula's demonic personality is that Sula never had crayons as a child, that there is a need for expressivity, a child's expressivity to express itself, to release itself. So to have a kind of cathartic release. So she said that black women of, let's say, time when they were slaves, they went mad because they could not express themselves. And then she speaks of the jazz singers, 1920s, and even later when, women expressed themselves to their scene, Watts singers, Bessie Smith, and even later in our times, I haven't heard a woman singer greater than Whitney Houston. Though, of course, Celine Dion, really is at the same level. But Whitney Houston's "And I Will Always Love You" is one of the greatest songs that I've ever heard. So then Mariah Carey, and then also so many other, Diana, I don't know why, I'm sorry, I forget her name, Diana Ross. Yes. So Alice Walker says that her mother slaved throughout the year, pickling, darning clothes. It was a big family, very poor family of the South. And she was relentlessly busy throughout the year. But when spring came, a certain restlessness overtook her mother. And then she had to be out in the garden among her flowers, planting flowers. And she said, my mother in her garden was like God in amidst his creation. And Walker says that it is from my mother's instinct for beauty that I imbibed my own. It's because my mother planted gardens, because she created a principle of beauty around me, that I imbibed my own and went on to becoming a poet. Thank you.